This is the number one thing I would recommend you investing in from the start. I'm always getting questions about how I started Shelter Skin. I know a lot of you guys are wanting to start your own brand, so I figured we'll do a founders chat series. I'll give you the tea on how to start a business and talk about some lessons I've learned along the way. Obviously, when you're starting a business, you want to start with your idea. For me, the idea of Shelter came very naturally because I was just looking for a way to replace all the synthetically fragranced body lotions and body oils that I was using. There was nothing that I found on the market that was both really, really good and looked really, really good. And so my little business brain was like, okay, perfect, that's it. And I know it's not always going to be a skincare product. It could be snacks, it could be clothing, but a lot of the lessons are still the same. You really want to start with like your one thing because it takes a ton of work, a ton of effort, and it's really hard. And if you don't absolutely love it and to your core believe in it, you're not going to want to do it after like 6 months. So once you have the product, then you want to start thinking about your supply chain. Where are you sourcing your materials from? And then you have to think about packaging. And you really, really want to vet those suppliers, make lots of samples because you're likely going to have to commit to a pretty high MOQ. So for us, we started with 3,000. And obviously as a small business, when you're first starting, that seems like an insane amount of money to put in upfront when you don't know what you're going to get out of it. So Alibaba is a great resource for this, but do your homework on your factories. With their websites, look on Reddit for reviews. Also, don't be afraid to ask for things like certifications. If you're making clothing, ask them for their OEKO certification. If you're doing paper packaging, you can do FSC certified. If you're doing stainless steel, you can ask for specific qualities of stainless steel. Just make sure you know what you're looking for and ask very specifically for it. And usually they can make that happen. They're very professional, very responsive in my experience. Also in my experience, this is a total global supply chain. So I was also looking at like an American company to help me source packaging. And when I was looking into it, they were also sourcing their packaging overseas. So I was just paying them to be the middleman to get the packaging for me. This is the number one thing I would recommend you investing in from the start. And it is quite an upfront cost, but I guarantee you it is so worth it. And that's branding. I worked with a local Austin branding agency called Wonderkind, and they did the entire brand identity for Shelter. So you get a color palette, specific fonts, all of your logos and your brand mark. And I reference that brand identity every single time I'm making packaging or designing the website or really anything. It gives your brand a much more cohesive look. Next, I would try and learn Illustrator. It seems a little daunting at first if you're completely unfamiliar with Adobe products, but I'm telling you, this is going to be one of your most used tools. Canva is useful too, but generally if you're working with suppliers, they're gonna want a .ai file, and so you'll need like a vectorized Adobe Illustrator file for that. And it's really not that hard when you get used to it. I'm not a pro, but I've got like a working understanding of Illustrator. So instead of having to pay a designer all the time, I do it myself. Those were kind of just the first few things that came to mind for me if you're starting a brand completely from scratch all on your own. But if you have any specific questions about building a brand, let me know, comment them down below, and I'll put it in the next video in the series. I hope that was helpful. Okay, bye.